Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz. Ben Ferguson with you. So nice to have you with us. And just so you guys know, we are doing almost every episode now on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch this show, you can do it on YouTube as well. This episode we're doing right now is on YouTube and on audio downloads wherever you get your podcast. So we'll remind you about that, but we're certainly very, very, very excited about that. Senator, we've got a lot to chat about tonight, including you going into the Lions Den where I lived for 7 years. At first, I got a text from someone that said, hey, what bet did Ted Cruz lose to go on CNN with Kaitlan Collins? I said, that's actually a very good question. It was not with me. It would have been a great bet. All of a sudden, I get text message, you're on there. I start watching, and it was some fireworks.
Well, tonight I went on CNN with Kaitlan Collins, and I did so because CNN has been pushing so much misinformation in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination that I wanted to go on and push back. And they've been big on the whole both sidesism, that it's really both sides. It's Republicans and Democrats that are engaging in violence. It's Republicans and Democrats that engage in hateful, violent rhetoric. And so both sides are equally responsible. And that is a lie. On our podcast just 2 days ago, we broke that down at length. Well, tonight I went on CNN to battle with Kaitlan Collins. And I got to say, she screamed at me. She interrupted me. She did not want the facts. She did not want to admit any of the reality. She had a political narrative and she was going to stick with it. We're going to play that for you, and you're going to see the back and forth that we had. We're also going to play what was released earlier this evening, which is the text exchanges between Charlie's murderer and his transgender boyfriend. And the text exchanges, it is a confession. He admits he's the murderer. He breaks down the details of what was involved in the aftermath of the shooting. And we're also going to talk about how ABC News gushed about it, treating the two of them like Romeo and Juliet. They behaved like teenagers, pitter-patter, oh, how exciting. The two of these sick individuals talking about how excited they were to have just murdered your friend and mine, the great Charlie Kirk.
All right, so let's go to just point one here. You decided to go on CNN. Now, what's interesting about this interview that you did, Senator, is actually the fact that you guys were not in the same room. Typically, There's a good chance you guys would have been. Kaitlan was in the UK for the presidential trip there. There was a little bit of a delay. What was not delayed is her anger at you and what you were saying and the yelling at you. Even across the pond, she's still on point with that one.
Yeah, and listen, Ben, for this kind of interview, I will almost always insist that it be in person.
Yeah.
Because if I know that someone is going to be an antagonistic, partisan hack, then I want to be in person to be able to fight back. I agreed to do this even though she was in the United Kingdom, and there was about a 2-second delay, so it made it hard. A downside of this interview is their extended portions were basically yelling over each other because of the delay. I actually thought she'd want to do a decent interview, and so she wouldn't just scream at me. If you've got a delay, you ask a question, you get an answer. You ask another question, you get an answer. That's how actually you and I have done interviews. We've interviewed people live from Israel, from Jerusalem, right after October 7th, halfway around the world. We've managed to do the interview. And if you actually want to interview someone, you don't scream and interrupt them. Well, Kaitlan has been complicit in CNN's propaganda. They have been misleading and lying to the American people. And it's why I wanted to do this. It's why I agreed to do this. She's been asking me, her show's been asking me to go on for some time. I've usually said no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. I decided to go on today because I think what they've been doing after the Charlie Kirk assassination has been incredibly dishonest and harmful. And I had hoped that we would have a conversation as mature adults. Yeah. Sadly, we did not. And so we're going to play the whole thing. The number one line that just people, so they understand the lie that's been told, and it's been propaganda 101 on CNN, is that we don't know the motive of the shooter. And you're insane if you She claims
like
we have no idea what motive.
Like
who could know?
Yeah,
who could
like
know?
Across all of their shows, by the way, like all of their shows are like locked
It's idiocy.
Yeah.
It is idiocy. So we're going to play the entire interview. It is fairly lengthy, and there's some fireworks, and there's some moments where we're yelling over each other. But I think this is really important to push back on the dishonesty from CNN and MSNBC and ABC, NBC, CBS. And so give a listen. My interview tonight with Kaitlan Collins on CNN.
And joining me now is Senator Ted Cruz. And Senator, I think you've probably been part of some theatrical moments of your own in some of those hearings. Obviously, it got quite contentious at points today. But what you were arguing there and what you were talking there about with the director, Kash Patel, was actually something President Trump himself talked about 5 years ago when he said the U.S. was going to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. You and Senator Cassidy had actually introduced a resolution calling for that 1 year before. Do you know why it didn't happen then, and do you expect it to happen now?
You know, I do think it's going to happen now, and I'm urging the Department of Justice and the FBI and the entire administration to do so. And more broadly, what I'm urging them to do, and at the hearing today, what I urge Director Patel to do, is follow the money. That much of this violence that we've seen is not organic, that there is real money that is funding it. So the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots all over the country, there was real money behind that. The anti-Israel, anti-Semitic riots on college campuses, there was real money behind that. The open border riots we saw in LA and across the country, there's real money behind that. I'm not the only person who noticed that at the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses, many of the tents all matched. And so what I'm urging the Department of Justice to do is look at who's funding it. And indeed, I've introduced legislation to aid in that. It's called the Stop Funders Act. And what that legislation would do is very simple. It adds rioting to the list of predicate offenses under RICO. And that would enable the Department of Justice to use RICO, a very powerful tool for going after organized crime, not just to go after the people committing specific acts of violence, but to go after those who are writing checks to foment that violence. And I think that would have a massive effect pulling back and limiting this violence.
Yeah, but can I ask you on just the Antifa part of this, what existing federal law would give the president or the State Department the authority to be able to designate a domestic group as a terrorist organization? Is there one?
Well, what I have called for, they're clearly carrying out acts of terrorism. They're carrying them out domestically. They're organizing, they're engaged in direct acts of violence. And indeed, one of the things that I asked Director Patel is what evidence is there that there are other people who had foreknowledge of this assassination of Charlie Kirk. We know that he was engaged in Reddit conversations with others, and we know that the shell casings that he used in the rifle had Antifa slogans on them and had transgender slogans on them. And it appears from what's been reporting that there were extensive discussions in various Reddit and Discord organizations. To the extent others had foreknowledge and aided and assisted, that may well be a manifestation of Antifa violence or transgender violence. We've seen a disproportionate incident of transgender violence as well. And so examining what groups potentially are behind these acts of violence, I think it is overwhelmingly clear things like the anti-Semitic protest had money behind it. With respect to Charlie Kirk's murder, that is not determined yet, but I think it should be investigated very thoroughly.
Yeah, as Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, just said, right now they don't have any evidence of an organization. Obviously, they're still looking into this. But on the bullet casings, I don't remember there being a transgender one on there. I remember him saying there was one that said, if you could read this, you're gay. It was referencing internet memes. But on what you just said there about investigating
there is, hold on a second, Kaitlan, there is a transgender
if there is funding.
Hold on, Kaitlan. Kaitlan, there is a transgender. There's a reference to... Do you see my bulge, which is, I'm told, is an online meme for transgenderism? And Director Patel testified that the murderer here was living with his romantic partner, who was a transgender man transitioning to being a woman. And so you have both the shell casing that directly references transgenderism, and in fact, Charlie Kirk was murdered moments after he was asked a question about transgender mass shootings, and that's when the shooter filed. And so... do we have conclusive proof at this case?
Well, hold on,
no,
Senator.
But I will say this. Some of the most disturbing polling numbers that I see are the number of Democrats who believe that this left-wing activist was somehow Republican. I mean, that really shows the media not doing the job they should be doing.
Okay, Senator, but But one moment, because you said a lot there, and we don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know
we don't have a motive yet.
What's
really?
happening with
Really? That's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator.
to fire the gun in celebration. You can't tell the motive,
Senator. That's not what I said, and I said law enforcement hasn't laid out a direct motive. They've laid out a lot of evidence here of these messages and what
actually,
the
they
shooter
have.
said
They've
to
said that
family
he was a
members
left-wing
and to
activist who hated Charlie Kirk. Pardon?
Senator, with all due respect, you know exactly what I'm saying. I'm not arguing with you politically. I'm saying that law enforcement has not put a specific motive. You know that there's a difference of what they're putting in a legal argument than what you're talking about. And you're not even we're not even arguing about the facts here.
What you just said is false,
Senator,
Kaitlan.
No.
Kaitlan, facts. Hold on a second. Let me answer your statement, because what you said is factually
Senator, with
false.
all due respect,
law enforcement.
With all due respect, you're putting a lot of statements that I did not say. And I want to get back to, we just laid out the facts
you
in the
just
opening
said
of the
law
show,
enforcement has not laid out a motive.
Today.
That is objectively
and we just spoke to the
false.
Deputy Attorney General.
That is objectively false.
They
what
have not
you
said
are
a
saying
concrete
is
motive of
objectively
exactly
false,
what it was.
And
They've laid out
CNN should
every
not be
evidence that we
engaged
know
in
so far.
misinformation. Caitlin, answer my question.
It's
Have
not
you seen the polling
Senator.
that shows the vast majority of
you were
Democrats
taking what I
believe
said
this murderer is a Republican and a Trump supporter? Have you seen that polling?
Let me get back to my questions, though, Senator, because the question here
You're not going to answer that
was
question?
actually
Are you going to answer
what
that
you were
question?
saying
You
about
have seen that
investigations
polling.
that you'd like to see.
So you're not going to
Senator,
answer the
I'm
question.
the one asking the questions here, and the question.
No,
about
we're having a
you saying that
conversation. I understand that you want to say things that are factually false, and then you don't actually want the facts. You don't actually want the facts laid out. Okay, give your speech.
That's not true, Senator. I'm asking you a question.
Go ahead. I don't know what your question is, because we have a delay because you're in England, so I can't hear what you're saying.
You said that you believe that left-wing groups should be investigated. You want to know where the financing is coming from for protests. Do you believe that they should also be looking into right-wing groups as well, or do you believe it should only be limited to that?
Look, I believe anyone engaged in acts of violence should be prosecuted and go to jail. But I will say there has been an enormous amount, and CNN has been guilty of this, of both sidesism, of saying, gosh, both sides are violent. And understand, yes, there is some violence on both sides, but it is the left that overwhelmingly celebrates this. It is leftists that have been celebrating. You look at Blue Sky, and it is a cesspool of leftists celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. You look at recent polling that shows over 50% of Democrats saying violence against Elon Musk is justified. Violence against Donald Trump is justified. You look at Democrats who do things like what Kamala Harris did, of giving money and urging people to give money to bail out violent rioters and Antifa riots. It is only one side that justifies this violence. My view is if you commit acts of violence, you should be prosecuted. And so, yes, we should follow the money. Anyone funding acts of violence, we should go
Senator,
after. But this is a left-wing problem.
How can you argue that it's... I think the argument that people have been talking about recently is what's going on with the Charlie Kirk case. I think people have raised that because there have been other acts of political violence as well when it comes to targeting Democrats. I mean, we've seen that with a lawmaker who was killed in Minnesota this summer alongside her husband. We've seen it with the break-in at Nancy Pelosi's
But the assassin
We've also
there
seen
was
it with Justice Brett Kavanaugh
the
and
assassin
others.
Hold on a second. If you're going to say facts, you need to get your facts right. The assassin there was not a right-wing assassin acting on a political motive. The assassin there was someone who had been an appointee of Tim Walz, and he was a deranged lunatic. And yes, there are deranged lunatics who attack people both right and left, but if you look at murders carried out for political agendas, they are overwhelmingly on the left. Whether it is the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the 2 assassination attempts of Donald Trump, the assassination attempt on Brett Kavanaugh, over and over and over again, whether it was the congressional shooter who came to Washington to the baseball game and said, I want to find congressional Republicans
we've noted all of those instances. We've noted all of those instances, but sir, we're also noting that there have been others, including the Democratic lawmakers who were targeted just a couple of months ago. So I think that is the point that people have made here.
But it wasn't by a Republican for a political agenda. And by the way, that lunatic should be prosecuted and go to jail. So what I'm not doing is what leftists are doing. Leftists are celebrating that murder. I think the murder in Minnesota was horrible. it was horrible, and that violent criminal should be prosecuted and going to jail. You would have a point if I said, gosh, let's set up a bail fund for that murderer. Then you'd have a point. But it's only one side that is doing that. Do you agree that on Blue Sky, there are thousands of leftists celebrating and reveling in the murder of Charlie Kirk?
Okay. Senator, I don't think that anyone should celebrate someone's murder regardless of what that person believed when they were on Earth. And I don't think Blue Sky is representative of how people feel. If you celebrate it, I think that's wrong, and I think that's evil.
It's representative of leftists. It's only left-wingers are on it.
I got to tell you, that was just one of those moments where she's like, and we're done. Like it's over. We're done. We're just going to move on past this. And I'm glad you, by the way, didn't let up on the facts there at the end, because you're absolutely right about this.
Look, I got to say, and there was a time, I mean, Kaitlan started out as a reporter for National Review. She's from Alabama. She didn't used to be insane.
Isn't she now like a Roll Tide? I think she's Roll Tide, if I remember correctly.
She is. And she got hired by CNN, and I don't know if she drank the Kool-Aid. I don't know if she just sold out. But her unwillingness. Okay, so number one, when I asked her, have you seen the polling that the vast majority of Democrats believe that Charlie Kirk's assassin was a right-wing MAGA Republican? She would not answer that question. The answer is yes. She has seen that. She knows that. But she wouldn't answer it because the reason that the vast majority of Democrats believe that is because CNN is lying to them. MSNBC is lying to them. The corporate media is lying to them. And it goes right to the heart of their propaganda. They are deceiving people. She wouldn't answer that. When I asked her, are you aware that on Blue Sky, now Blue Sky is this sort of left-wing Twitter that they set up to say, let's just have lefties communicate. Blue Sky is this cesspool of leftists celebrating this murder. I asked her, do you know that? She knows that. That is not a surprise to her. But if she admitted that, she would have to admit that this is not the fault of both sides of Republicans and Democrats. It is leftists who are rationalizing this, who are justifying this, who are celebrating this. And by the way, it was fascinating. At the end, she just cut it off. Done. Ted Cruz, be quiet.
Yeah.
A point that I was going to make, there's also a real difference between how the left and right reacts when something like this happens. When George Floyd was killed, leftists rioted all over this country. They firebombed police cars. At least 19 people were killed in Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots all over the country. In contrast, when Charlie Kirk was killed, a great American, what did conservatives do? We held prayer vigils. We stood up and we held candles and we prayed and we honored his life. And by the way, left-wing radicals came and tried to disrupt those prayer vigils by screaming and yelling, engaging in acts of violence. There is a difference, and CNN is all in propaganda and denying that difference.
And by the way, Senator, let's also go to the other lie. And you mentioned all of the things that conservatives do differently than liberals. There was a list, by the way, that went viral. I do want to bring it up real quick. There was a great list put out. It said when Democrats are angry, you get BLM riots, Antifa, church shootings, Trump assassination attempt, Charlie Kirk assassination, pro-life pregnancy centers are put on fire, Tesla vandalism, attacks against ICE agents, attacks against police, attacks against federal courthouses. And this is just merely a partial list. And what happens when we are attacked? We have prayer vigils and we clean up profanity that is put on bridges. By the way, you went viral for that. Well done. We didn't even mention that earlier. And for people that don't know what happened, Sunday we did our show, and then you saw online, I'm assuming, we haven't even talked about this. Online, I think you must have seen the picture that someone had put up on one of the overpasses not far from where you live and I live, Charlie Kirk, and you just said, all right, I'm going to go paint over it, and you did it, and then put it on the internet.
Yeah, it pissed me off. This was on Highway 59 in Houston, right in the middle of Houston.
Yeah.
Where this happened was about a mile from my house. It was very close from where I live. It was at 59 and Shepherd, for anyone from Houston. It was right at the Shepherd exit. And I saw on Twitter the image of someone had spray painted F Charlie Kirk, and they did not abbreviate F.
Yeah.
And it pissed me off. I mean, Charlie was a friend of mine. He was an extraordinary person, and that kind of hate was wrong. And so I decided, that afternoon, I went down. I could tell where it was from the highway sign, and I went down with some paint and a roller, and I just covered it up, and I painted over it, and I erased it, and then I put out the pictures, and I said, look, some despicable bastard put this up, and I've covered it up. TxDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation, has been notified. They will almost surely remove this expeditiously, but I've removed it now so that not another Texan. 59 is a very busy freeway, so there are thousands, or in time millions of people that are driving up and down 59. I didn't want them to look at that message, and so I just covered it up in white paint, and when TxDOT removes it, great. I will say that went viral. I got a lot of folks who texted me and said, thank you for doing that. And I got to say, my response to all of them was just it needed to be done. This was grotesque, and we needed to just cover it up and say that this is not okay.
I want to move to the text messages that have come out, and it's very interesting to see all of the evidence that is now we are seeing, the transparency of these text messages that were between the shooter and his transgendered boyfriend. And I also want to say there's some people that are saying, oh, you're taking this hook, line, and sinker. I don't know if they planned the text messages. I don't know if this was him trying to protect the roommate and act like the roommate knew nothing about it. I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of that. But what was shocking about this is how the media decided to play it and romanticize their relationship through the text messages in the weirdest, creepiest way I've ever seen the mainstream media do this.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to read you these text messages because they're horrifying, but it makes clear there is no doubt that this murderer is guilty. And by the way, there is a reason I won't say the murderer's name, because anyone who engages in a mass murder and horrific crime like this, part of the reason they do this is they want to be famous. I don't repeat these bastards' name. I will call him the murderer or the assassin or the defendant, but I will not say his name. But the murderer and his boyfriend were exchanging texts, and the murderer left under a keyboard in their apartment a note saying that he had the opportunity to kill Charlie Kirk and he took it. And his boyfriend, who is a man who is transgender and transitioning to be a woman, responded, "What?" with like a whole bunch of question marks. And you're joking, right? And here's the exchange. The murderer says, "I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you." Boyfriend, you weren't the one who did it, right? 4 question marks. Murderer, I am. I'm sorry. Boyfriend, I thought they caught the person. Murderer, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from the drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Boyfriend, why? Murderer, why did I do it? Boyfriend, yeah. Murderer, I've had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Boyfriend, how long have you been planning this? Murderer, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked by it. I think they already swept the spot, but I don't want to chance it. Murderer, I wish I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulges UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Those are the text exchanges. Now, number one, reading those text exchanges, it is 100% clear. It's not 99%, it's not 98%. It's 100% clear. This defendant is the murderer. He is the assassin. He is confessing to his boyfriend, I did it. He is confessing details of the crime that only the murderer would know. He will be convicted. Yeah. He was charged today. He will be convicted. But he is guilty today. Based on that evidence, it is 100% certain he is guilty. And his motive is clear. You know, Kaitlan Collins and CNN and MSNBC, they say, we don't know the motive. Maybe he just disliked tall people. Yeah. Maybe he was just, firing his gun in celebration and it accidentally hit the throat of someone.
Somebody that was there excited just to see Charlie Kirk and it went off randomly. Yeah.
Like the level of, and by the way, an idiot commentator at MSNBC said, maybe it was a supporter of Charlie Kirk firing his gun in celebration. Now, thankfully, that commentator got fired for that idiocy. But the motive is absolutely clear. He hated Charlie Kirk. He's a left-wing Antifa activist. He's a transgender activist. He is sleeping with a transgender man who is transitioning to be a woman. And so the motive, there's no ambiguity, but CNN hates that motive. They cannot admit that's what happened. Oh, my goodness, that would undermine their entire political agenda. So they desperately have to say the motive is unclear. By the way, Kaitlan Collins said repeatedly, well, law enforcement hasn't laid out the motive. Yes, they have. They repeatedly laid out the motive. They said it's a left-wing activist who's radicalized. The bullets had carved on them Antifa and transgender messages. I mean, this is not subtle. He was not hiding his motive. But I have to say, as repulsive as CNN's reaction was, ABC's was worse. I want you to listen.
Way worse. Like, you can't overstate it.
Okay. I want you to listen to ABC News' reaction to this text exchange between the murderer and his transgender boyfriend. Here, give a listen.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was.
I love how they say it's a riveting press conference, Senator. It's God riveting. And just, he referred to him as my love, and this is just so sweet and sincere. It's like, what in the world are you guys doing over there at ABC News with your special report live coverage?
Touching and loving. Oh, these text messages. I murdered this person for you. Oh, my love, pitter patter, pitter patter. That is repulsive. It is repulsive that ABC News is gushing over this psychopathic murderer. And ABC News, they're touching and sweet text messages. He is confessing to a deliberate murder because he hates what somebody is saying. He murdered a husband. He murdered a father of two little kids, one boy, one girl. And ABC News thinks it's so sweet that he confessed to his transgender boyfriend, which of course they call his roommate, even though he's calling him my love. Like there's no ambiguity when you call someone my love, what exactly the relationship is. Yep. But ABC News cannot admit. To them, it is sweet and beautiful. This radical leftist murdering Charlie Kirk. I got a message for you guys. Note, it's not sweet and it's not beautiful.
Yeah, by the way, side note on this, I don't know if you knew this, but 10 minutes after that, like the internet exploded over it, he went back on and doubled down on it and basically did the same thing again. Like, I'm not backing down from this. I think it's genuine and sweet and sincere and a love story.
What a romantic Romeo and Juliet story. Psycho leftist murderer killing people because he's filled with hate. I can't think of anything more beautiful than that. Certainly ABC News is very persuasive in that regard.
Yeah, he'll be the face of the network before you know it.
God help us. Did he really double down? Did he really go back on air and do it again?
Yeah, yes. Do you want to hear it? Because I've got it if you want to hear it.
Absolutely, yes.
This is Matt Gutman
I haven't heard this, so play it for us.
So this is 10 minutes after he said on ABC News Live, it's heartbreaking on so many levels. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was murdered brutally in front of a crowd of thousands. On the other hand, there is this duality of every portrait of a again, his exact words, of a very, this is like a love story.
Loving,
so here
touching.
Yeah, touching. So this is 10 minutes later after the internet, and I have no doubt that he knew that there was a problem, right? So
sure,
he knew there was an issue.
100%.
100%. Here he is 10 minutes later.
It's heartbreaking on so many levels, Kira. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was murdered brutally in front of a crowd of thousands of people who watched him being shot through the neck and then essentially bleed out in front of him. And I think one of the things that the attorney here made a very fine point about is that a lot of these charges, 7 charges, were aggravated because children were present. Children witnessed this. Children were put in harm's way. And that was something that obviously is aggravating here, and that's one of the reasons that the suspect, in addition to the alleged murder being political in nature, is facing the death penalty. They're going for the death penalty. And on the other hand, there is this duality of a portrait of a very human person, a very human experience from this entire family. As you mentioned it, the mother who essentially discovered that it was her son who had done this, the kid who had got a 34 out of 36 on the ACTs, who had a 4.0, who got a full ride to college here, that kid was the one who allegedly perpetrated. She saw those pictures and identified him essentially. And then those text messages, and I don't think I've ever experienced a press conference in which we've read text messages that are so fulsome, so robust, so apparently, allegedly self-incriminating, and yet on the other hand, so touching. Right, with the suspect reaching out to his roommate, who is allegedly his boyfriend, who we understand, identified as male at birth, now identifies as female, and the terminology he used. He was trying to protect him. He kept calling him my love. My reason for doing this is to protect you, but also asking him to delete the messages and not speak to law enforcement. So there's this heartbreaking duality that we're seeing very tragically playing out.
If that's not doubling down, I don't know what is.
Fulsome, touching,
yes.
Loving. It is.
Heartbreaking.
Look, I don't know who this particular reporter is, but I will say it says something that this speaks to him in such a touching, moving way. I see depraved maniacs who just committed cold-blooded murder. And his boyfriend is like not saying, "Dear God, what the hell did you do?"
Yeah,
he's just like, "Oh, it was you. Oh, okay." And he didn't. The boyfriend never said that there's anything wrong with murdering Charlie Kirk. He was perfectly fine with it. There ain't nothing touching about these two psychopaths reveling in their cold-blooded murder. And for ABC to think it is, that really tells you how messed up ABC is.
By the way, I'll be very interested to see if ABC tries to walk this back, if it comes out those text messages where I cover your ass moment to try to save the boyfriend roommate. I will be very interested to see how they manage that. Don't forget, we do the show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we do the show to talk about these types of things and what the media is doing and exposing it. So hit that subscribe or auto-download button, and please write us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Also, if you want to watch the podcast, this one, for example, is up on YouTube, so you can follow us on YouTube, Verdict with Ted Cruz there, and the Senator and I will see you back here in a couple of days.
This is an iHeart podcast.